In the digital age, fame and terror can cross paths in chilling ways. Let's explore the tales of 4 people whose lives were upended by their stalkers. From a TikTok influencer's nightmare to a bodybuilder's deadly livestream, these stories reveal the dark side of obsession in a connected world. In the digital age, where viral fame is just a click away, a young TikTok influencer named Jo found herself trapped in a nightmarish web of terror woven by a twisted obsession that threatened to destroy her life. Jo's world was one of lights, cameras, and captivating content entertaining thousands of adoring followers. Little did she know that lurking in the shadows was a dark and sinister force fixated on her every move. It began innocently enough when, in March of 2024, she started receiving strange messages, DMs that hinted at an unsettling familiarity with her daily routine. Not just that, the messages indicated the new place where she lived. And some messages were asking her to do things, the nature of which she never admitted publicly. But these were just the ominous whispers that preceded the storm. Jo's concern grew as the messages multiplied. She would get tons of messages from a random account or two that mentioned personal details about what kind of car she drove and what she did for a living. The content of these messages gave the influencer the impression that her stalker may well be someone who knows her. As the days ticked by, the messages became more frequent, personal, and threatening. Jo's once safe haven, her apartment, became a prison of paranoia as her stalker's obsession spiraled out of control. The first strike came on March 25th, when Jo woke to find her license plate stolen and her car window shattered, a brutal reminder that her tormentor was closing in. Police responded, but with little evidence at the crime scene, there was little they could do. Just 2 days later, the police were back at Jo's apartment. Her window was smashed again, but this time she was prepared. Jo had set up surveillance cameras, capturing the vehicle and the faces of those involved. But while the footage captured the perpetrator's face and the make of the car, the license plate was not visible. That very same day, the brazen stalkers returned in broad daylight. This time around, Jo managed to capture their vehicle's license plate. This was just the break the police had hoped to get. The terror escalated on March 28th, when Jo reached out to authorities once more due to the severity of the online harassment. Her tormentor's comments had become more personal and threatening in nature. Adding to the torment, the perpetrator claimed to have left disturbing items in Jo's mailbox. The stalker's cat-and-mouse games came to a head when authorities traced the vehicle's license plate. Police performed a traffic stop that ultimately unmasked one of the key players in this twisted saga. The driver, Justice Dulaney, was finally linked to Jo's harrowing ordeal. While Justice admitted to being present for many of the incidents involving Jo, a man called Richard Newman was the alleged stalker. Richard was apparently infatuated with Jo, but the infatuated follower's feelings were not reciprocated by Jo, who had apparently rejected his advances on several occasions. This only served to fuel Richard's anger. He felt entitled to reciprocation after sending Jo money through her online platform. Newman's obsession knew no bounds. Having tracked down Jo's apartment complex, he had no clue which apartment was hers. So, whenever she live-streamed, Richard would be outside the building. He would methodically walk from door to door, shining a laser pointer into the windows. While watching the stream, he was hoping to pinpoint her location, based on the laser being captured on her stream. Justice also admitted to police that Richard had shot out Jo's windows with a slingshot on more than one occasion. But the most chilling revelation was yet to come. She also confessed that Richard's twisted desires had spiraled into threats of physical violence. Richard had spoken to her about harming Jo or even her mother. Jo also revealed that Richard intended to buy a firearm, but could not afford it. She did not doubt in her mind that Richard was capable of physical violence toward Jo due to his size and previous aggressive behavior. That was all the information the police needed to finally make a play for Richard. Jo's stalker was arrested shortly afterward in April 2024. He faces several charges, including larceny, stalking, and assault, along with several others. His bail was set at $100,000. But for Jo, the scars run deeper than any physical wound, a reminder that the price of online fame can be a descent into the darkest corners of human obsession. As Joe's nightmare comes to an end, another tale of unexpected terror is only just starting in a quiet Maryland town. In the quiet town of Hagerstown, Maryland, 25-year-old Hannah Viverette's life took a terrifying turn. What started as a peaceful night of meditation and dance in her second-story apartment would soon become a chilling encounter that would shake her sense of security to its core and spark a nationwide conversation about women's safety. Hannah, a former dental receptionist whose life had already been altered by the pandemic, had developed a routine of self-care and mindfulness. Like many others, she found solace in personal rituals during these uncertain times. On that fateful night, at around 10:15 p.m., she set up her phone to record herself, as she often did during personal moments of reflection and movement. It was a habit born out of love for meditation and dance, a way to capture her growth and expression. Little did she know that this simple act would soon capture a horrifying intrusion that would resonate with millions. As Hannah swayed to the music, lost in her world, the unexpected sound of her balcony door cracking open pierced her peaceful home. At first, she thought the sound was merely caused by the wind and brushed it off. But Hannah's heart nearly stopped when she saw a man standing in the doorway. The intruder, hands firmly planted in his pockets, mumbled incoherently as he stared at her with unsettling intensity. In that moment, Hannah's world froze. Her mind raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. Was he armed? What were his intentions? With remarkable presence of mind, Hannah managed to confront the intruder, demanding that he leave her apartment. The man retreated to the balcony, seemingly taken aback by her reaction. This split-second decision may have saved Hannah's life. Seizing the moment, she rushed to her neighbor's door, frantically knocking while dialing 911 with her shaking hands. It took the police over 40 minutes to arrive, an eternity for a woman who had just faced her worst nightmare. However, when the authorities arrived, the investigation gained momentum quickly, thanks to a chilling revelation. Hannah recognized her intruder. This wasn't the first time she had seen the man. He had been a constant, creepy presence around her apartment complex, often seen in construction attire and driving a white truck. Hannah recalled multiple instances where he had made her uncomfortable, staring at her while she sat on her balcony, seemingly relishing in her discomfort. It was a predatory behavior that had set her on edge long before this brazen break-in. As the investigation unfolded, more disturbing details came to light. The intruder lived across from her in the building, far too close to home. The day after the incident, when questioned by the leasing office, the man's story quickly unraveled in the face of Hannah's video evidence. His admission to climbing her balcony, coupled with the claim that he had been invited, led to his arrest. The truth, captured on camera, was undeniable. But the nightmare was far from over. Despite spending a night in jail, the intruder was released on bail the following morning. Hannah, still reeling from the invasion, now found herself living close to her stalker. She filed for a peace order, similar to a restraining order, but the wheels of justice turned slowly. The man wouldn't be evicted from his apartment until December 14th, leaving Hannah in a state of constant fear and vigilance for weeks. The incident forced Hannah to reevaluate past events with a new, terrifying perspective. Shortly after moving into her apartment, she recalled a strange occurrence in September. She'd awakened to find an unfamiliar notebook near her front door. At the time, she just assumed it belonged to maintenance staff and had handed it over to the leasing office. Now, armed with photos she had taken of the book, she made a chilling discovery. The intruder's name was written at the top. This revelation suggested that he had been in her apartment before, adding a new layer of violation to her ordeal. The realization that her private space had been invaded multiple times was devastating. As Hannah grappled with the aftermath of the break-in, she found herself facing not only personal trauma, but also bureaucratic hurdles. Her leasing office denied any prior employment connection with the intruder, despite multiple residents confirming that he had in fact worked in maintenance at the building. The incident, captured on video, quickly went viral after Hannah shared it on TikTok. What started as a way to inform friends and family about her ordeal turned into a worldwide conversation about women's safety and the terrifying reality of stalking. This video garnered millions of views, bringing attention to Hannah's story and the broader issues it represented. Within 16 hours of posting, the video received over 1 million likes. On the other side of the world, thousands watched a live stream as violence unfolded in real time. On a seemingly ordinary day in August 2023, thousands of Instagram users received a bone-chilling message from a familiar face. "You will see what a live murder looks like," declared Nerman Selimanovic, a well-known bodybuilder, to his followers. Little did they know that they were about to witness a horrifying act of violence that would shock a nation. In the small town of Gradičak, Bosnia and Herzegovina, what began as a disturbing live stream quickly escalated into a brutal murder and a subsequent killing spree. At the center of this tragedy are two individuals whose lives became fatally intertwined. Nerman Selimanovic, a 35-year-old bodybuilder and fitness instructor, was known for his muscular physique and social media presence. However, his public image masked a troubled past, including arrests for drug smuggling and assaulting a police officer. Nizama Hećimović, his ex-wife and the mother of his young child, had been trying to escape a cycle of abuse, having reported Nerman for domestic violence. She also refined a restraining order against him in the weeks leading up to her murder. 2 weeks before the violent incident, Nerman's rage had erupted over a minor issue. The meal Nizama served did not meet his expectations. In a fit of anger, he brutally beat her, causing her to flee to her father's home in Srebrenik with her baby in tow. The police in Srebrenik, however, offered no refuge, citing jurisdictional limitations, leaving Nizama vulnerable and desperate. Days before the tragedy, Nerman's behavior grew even more erratic. He oscillated between tearful apologies and violent threats, calling Nizama's family and vowing to kill them all if she did not return to him. Despite the escalating danger, the judicial system failed her once again. A clerical error and a lack of immediate action on protection orders left Nizama without the safety net she desperately needed. The night before the murder, Nizama and her aunt, Sajada, were on edge, their fear palpable. They stayed up late, watching through the windows, dreading Nerman's arrival. The only hope of security they had was the arrival of Nizama's father the next day. On that dreadful morning, Nerman began his day with grim determination. Before the post office had even opened, he was there, anxious to collect a judicial decision he had missed the day before. This document was crucial. It rejected a restraining order Nizama had requested against him. The denial of this protection order seemed to fuel his maddening rage. After finally getting the document, he went home, snapped a pic of it, and sent it to a friend. Then, armed with a pistol, he set off towards the house, where he believed his ex was hiding with her aunt, Sajada. Nerman's arrival at Sajada's house was sudden and violent. His fury was described as uncontainable. He began by shooting at the front door, firing multiple rounds in a desperate attempt to gain entry. Nerman then smashed through the glass door, his hands bloodied by the shattered glass. Inside, the aunt managed to hide Nizama and the baby in the bedroom. Once inside, Nerman pointed a gun at Sajada's head, demanding to know where his ex was. But then he heard the cries of his daughter from upstairs. Nerman shot at the bedroom door, trying to break it down. There, he found Nizama, desperately trying to shield her child. He grabbed the baby and dragged his ex outside. In a horrific display of violence, Nerman beat up Sajada's son, who had tried to intervene. He shot Nadim twice in the leg, leaving him incapacitated. With the baby in his arms and Nizama by his side, Nerman's brutality reached its peak. As Nerman's rampage continued, the police response was frustratingly slow. It took them nearly 30 minutes to arrive from the station that was just 3 minutes away. But by then, the damage had already been done. Around 10:25 a.m., Nerman began a live broadcast on Instagram, a chilling act witnessed by approximately 12,000 viewers. He addressed his followers, announcing that they were about to witness an execution. At 10:33, Nerman called his ex's aunt, who was in hospital with a wounded son. When she didn't answer, he wrote her this chilling message. "Why aren't you answering? You can probably hear her screaming." During this time, Nerman continued his vicious assault on the mother of his child. He also called her sick mother to listen to her daughter's screams and desperate pleas, begging for her life and that of her child. Throughout the broadcast, Nerman continued to speak to his viewers. He blamed his ex for his actions, accusing her of hiding their child from him for over a week and reporting him for domestic violence. His words, an attempt to justify his brutality as a consequence of her actions. The camera captured the shocking scenes of Nerman beating Nizama, who was already bloodied and disfigured. The cries of their baby could be heard in the background, adding to the horror. Then he seized a pistol from the table and, with cold precision, shot Nizama in the forehead. Her lifeless body fell to the floor. The camera then pans to their young child, lying on the floor beside her mother's lifeless body. Nerman chillingly urged someone to save the child before continuing his rampage. Shockingly, Nizama wouldn't be the last to die at his hand that day. Fueled by a mix of rage and desperation, he continued his spree of violence, broadcasting his actions in 2 more live videos while being pursued by the police. In these videos, he admitted to killing 2 more people, a man and his young son. The additional murders spread fear and chaos throughout Gradakak, as residents realized the extent of the danger they were in. As Nerman moved through the town, he wounded a police officer, another man, and a woman, adding to the tally of victims. His actions were marked by a chilling sense of defiance and a lack of remorse. His rampage, although savage, unfolded in less than 14 minutes. He spoke of reloading his weapon and expressed satisfaction in the terror he was causing. His behavior painted a picture of a man who had reached a point of no return. The police mobilized quickly, attempting to capture Nerman and bring an end to his deadly spree. However, he managed to evade them for some time, using social media to broadcast his movements and intentions. Nerman then fled towards Palagicevo, continuing to elude authorities. Eventually, he hid in an abandoned farm in Ledenice. When the special police unit closed in on him, he realized escape was impossible. At 1:45 p.m., Nerman ended his own life with a single gunshot. The loss of life and the trauma inflicted on the survivors and witnesses left a deep scar from Gradakak. Tragically, Nizama's attempts to safeguard her family ultimately led to the horrific events that unfolded. The McLaren family had no idea they would be dealt the same hand when their daughter's boyfriend shattered their reality. "I've done nothing wrong." Joshua Stimpson uttered the calm, chilling words just days before his deadly obsession reached its tragic climax. Their relationship had begun like any other modern love story, a match on the dating app Tinder. But what followed was a nightmarish descent into manipulation and escalating fixation. Molly McLaren was a vibrant young woman with a bright future, whose life was cut short by an ex-boyfriend whose obsession turned deadly. Molly was like many young women, navigating the world of dating in the age of social media and dating apps. She was known for her bright personality, love of fitness, and a close-knit circle of family and friends. She was a diligent student, pursuing a career in personal training. Those who knew Molly described her as kind-hearted, ambitious, and full of life. Her vibrant and bubbly personality made her a beloved friend among her peers. In July 2016, eager to find a partner to share her busy life with, Molly started talking to Joshua Stimpson on Tinder. Joshua, a man with a seemingly charming exterior, quickly caught Molly's interest. Their communication started with a message from Molly on July 31st, 2016, where she suggested they pretend to have known each other longer to take the relationship to the next level. It seemed innocent enough, a young woman looking for love and connection. The pair didn't meet face-to-face until later that year in October, and they began dating shortly afterward. In November 2016, Molly and Joshua met in person for the first time, after months of online interaction. Their relationship blossomed, and soon, Molly introduced him to her family. Molly's parents welcomed him. Her mother described Joshua as normal, noting that he appeared pretty even-tempered. However, there were early signs of trouble. Early in their relationship, Joshua quit his job as a warehouse worker, claiming it was to spend more time with Molly. His possessive behavior continued to escalate. He often showed up uninvited and unannounced, a red flag that Molly, in her optimism, chose to overlook. Joshua's background revealed a more sinister side. Joshua had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which added another layer to his already troubling behavior. Friends and acquaintances described him as having a dual personality. Charming and sociable on the surface, but capable of deep-seated anger and jealousy. By June 2017, Molly was ready to end things. "I just feel really pressured with you at the moment, if I'm honest," she told him in a text message shortly before they broke up. Molly ended their relationship during a birthday celebration, announcing the breakup in front of friends. Joshua's reaction was alarming. He shouted that she had finished with him, making for an embarrassing scene. Following the breakup, Joshua's behavior took a darker turn. He bombarded Molly's Facebook with cruel accusations and claims, including that she had a drug habit. He also reposted private photos and intimate messages. Despite Molly blocking him, he employed an unsuspecting fan to track her Instagram posts and location, allowing him to show up where she was. On June 20th, 2017, he purchased a knife and later a pickaxe, items that would later play a horrific role. Distressed and frightened, Molly reported the abuse to the police on June 22nd. She printed out the posts and took them to the authorities. Police called Joshua, warning that they would arrest him if his harassment continued. In the call, the officer said, "We wouldn't want Molly to come to the police station again about you, would we?" Oddly, he responded, "Wouldn't we?" In a telephone conversation, police warned Stimson about his harassment. Officers checked their files, and Stimson had no record. So police told Molly and her friends and family to block him on social media and to report any further abuse. Not long after, Molly went back, once again, to the police. Chillingly, he responded, "I've done nothing wrong, and if you think I have, there's more to come." This direct threat foreshadowed the escalating danger Molly was in. With the relationship over, Molly's ex sought every opportunity to stalk her. He even joined a gym in Rochester, where he knew Molly had applied for a receptionist job. As the days passed, Molly's fear intensified. She confided in her friends about her growing anxiety that Joshua could physically harm her. "He's literally lost the plot," she told friends. "I was worried he was going to turn up at my house. I'm actually scared of what he might do. I'm scared he might hurt me." And her fear was not unwarranted. She started noticing Joshua showing up at places where she frequented. Despite blocking him on social media, he continued to find ways to reach out to her. On June 28th, Molly went out with friends to a pub. But suddenly, Joshua appeared out of nowhere with a date in tow. The following day, Molly headed to the gym to film herself exercising, part of her training to become a personal instructor. She had no idea that Joshua wasn't far behind. Eerie surveillance footage shows him initially hesitant about entering the gym, but then he goes in and finds Molly alone in the gym. He walks straight past her and coolly just starts working out next to her without saying a word. Eventually, Molly confronts him, asking if he's following her. At 10:45 a.m., she texted her mother, expressing her fear that Stimson had shown up at the gym. She then called her mother, who advised her to come home. That was the last time she spoke to her daughter. In the final minutes of her life, Molly reached out to her friends again. At 11:02 a.m., she sent a WhatsApp message saying she felt like she was constantly looking over her shoulder. Just minutes later, at 11:08 a.m., Joshua attacked. He followed Molly to her car and yanked the driver's side door open. What followed was a frenzied and brutal assault. He stabbed Molly repeatedly with a knife he'd purchased days earlier. The attack was witnessed by multiple bystanders in the car park, including a dog walker who tried unsuccessfully to get him off Molly. Despite these efforts, the attack continued until Joshua, covered in blood, calmly handed himself over to the police, saying, "You want me." He had stabbed Molly 75 times and slit her throat in the brutal attack. Molly McLaren was pronounced dead at 11:43 a.m. The court proceedings revealed the extent of Joshua's dangerous behavior. Joshua had claimed Molly was his first girlfriend, portraying himself as lonely and inexperienced. However, at his trial, 2 ex-girlfriends testified about his obsessive tendencies. One woman testified that their relationship quickly turned toxic due to Joshua's possessiveness. His harassment escalated to threats of violence. Despite not knowing her address, he even sent a picture of her back garden and slashed her car tires, leaving a chilling message about a surprise waiting for her. The prosecution laid out the timeline of events leading to Molly's murder, emphasizing the warning signs and the escalating nature of Stimpson's behavior. The defense attempted to argue that Stimpson's bipolar disorder played a role, but the evidence of premeditation and the brutality of the attack left little room for doubt. It took the jury less than 4 hours to come to find Joshua guilty of murder. He was jailed for life in order to serve at least 26 years behind bars, a small measure of justice for Molly and her family. What measures do you think should be implemented to make social media safer? Did authorities do enough? Let me know in the comments below.